didn't make that pick.
Welcome back to the Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. I am your host, Zay, the fantasy football fiend, and I have my guy, your guy, BK Wins. Holla at the people, BK.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, guys, make sure to follow us on YouTube at The Gospel STP. Again, that's The Gospel STP. And if you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, that's the Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group. We give out a ton of information and keep you up to date on what's going on in the wonderful world of sports on the Facebook group there. And you can catch up with anything that you have missed thus far, fantasy-wise, sports news-wise, all that kind of good stuff as far as you want to go back there on YouTube. Let's go ahead and kick it off for the evening. BK, what's the good word for the week?
Yes, Zay. So I'm going to give you 4 games. And I just want to kind of get your thoughts on, you can pick any one of the games and kind of break down, give a preview of it and who you like. So the 4 games, the Eagles at the Bengals, the Bills at Seattle, Dallas at the Niners, or the Bears at Washington. Which one of those games did you want to kind of tell the good people who you like and why? How do you see it?
I see Cincinnati beating Philly. I see Cincinnati kind of rounding into form, kind of getting their sea legs, if you will. As far as winners and losers are concerned, I see Seattle beating Buffalo, the 49ers beating Dallas, and I see Chicago beating Washington, but only because Jaden Daniels won't be playing, and that sucks so bad. I was so looking forward to the top 2 quarterbacks picked in this year's draft going against each other. They'll have plenty more opportunities for that to take place, but the rib injury to Jaden Daniels is kind of putting a damper on what would have been one of the highlights for this week for me. But I just see Cincinnati rounding into form, and I see Philly kind of hovering around mediocrity. The coach doesn't necessarily have that long of a leash. I think that tension is kind of, I would say, permeating itself throughout the locker room, if you will. They're making a lot of silly mistakes. They just don't look like they're playing as good as the pieces that they have. So I think Cincinnati might be able to sneak up on them. And as far as Seattle and Buffalo are concerned, I actually feel like Seattle's the better team. Here's a caveat. If DK Metcalf doesn't play, that may switch up things for me just a little bit. I'm not sure if he's going to play yet this week. He did have a grade 1 MCL sprain, not indicating if he's going to go. If he doesn't go, then that gives Buffalo the upper hand now that they have Amari Cooper. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, so for me, I have the Niners beating the Cowboys for sure. I know the Niners are really beat up on offense, really beat up on offense. But we saw what Dallas did against Detroit, right? We didn't forget about the 38-point beatdown at home. And I know Detroit's really good, but you lose at home by 38 and you think you're a playoff team, that's a problem. So I think the Niners are going to win. They won't have too much of an issue. I like Buffalo to beat Seattle. Again, I'm big on the Bills. Not that Seattle's not a good team and Seattle's a tough place to play, but I've been on the Bills bandwagon for a while. Make no mistake, I'm not a fan of their coach McDermott by any means, but in the regular season, the Bills have proven that they are very, very tough to beat, and so I like the Bills there. It's going to be close, but I like the Bills to win. And then I agree with your assessment. I've also been on the Bengals comeback trail for a while here as well. They've got 2 wins in a row, beating the Giants and the Browns. Granted, that's not going to impress anybody given the state of those teams. The Eagles are definitely a step up in class. But I just think that the Bengals are going to find a way at home to get to 500. And even without Mariota, even without Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams hasn't impressed me. And their defense is legit. but they don't have a coach and their quarterback has problems. I like Washington to win a close one at home. They're at home. It's going to be a big game. I like Washington to get it done. But it should be very close.
Who is the biggest AFC threat to Kansas City Chiefs, in your opinion?
Well, I hope that Vander's listening to this because he'll smile at home when I make this comment. The Ravens are the biggest threat. And even though I harp on the fact that the Ravens are 1-5 with Lamar and they see that helmet and they just don't get it done, when you have Lamar Jackson and the ability he has and the dual threat that he presents, and now you add a hammering back in Derrick Henry, and they're well coached and with Harbaugh there, I just think they're the recipe to give the Chiefs the toughest matchup. If you made me pick I know you like the honorable mentions, I would actually give it to the Bengals despite their record because the Bengals always play them tough.
That's my team that I have been their biggest threat because it's not necessarily the second best team that's the biggest threat. It's the team that seems to have your number that's the biggest threat to you as a team. I wouldn't say that Cincinnati is as big of a threat to the AFC as they are to the Kansas City Chiefs. But I can also say that Kansas City has kind of made Baltimore their little brother, and they just figure out a way to beat them even when they don't necessarily have the better team for whatever reasons, whether it be due to injury or whatever the case that may be going on. They just figure out a way to beat Baltimore, and at some point in time, it becomes like a head case kind of thing. It's now the game is bigger than it should be because we aren't just playing the game. We're playing against the ghost of games past. So at Cincinnati, they don't have that issue. They're just looking at, okay, you're Kansas City. You've only lost a couple of games or you have no losses, wherever it may be when they meet each other. So what? We beat you before, we can beat you again. It's just a different mind state. And in a game of inches where your head is going into the game, that can prove to be the difference between the winners and the losers. I just kind of feel like Baltimore may go up against the Chiefs trying to do too much versus just playing their game. Cincinnati would go into the game just doing what they need to do to win, which is what they've done before. It's the same formula. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Yeah, to your point, Zay, it's funny because in every sport, right, most of it is mental because physically all these players are pros and really good, right? There's a reason why they're pros. They're really good. They're the best at what they do. The difference is in these really close games, Kansas City's able to get to the finish line and the Ravens aren't. The Bengals have been proven that they can beat them, but the Ravens know in these close games, we never beat them. And so, like, the cumulative effect of every time we've lost on the road in the playoffs to them, we've lost at home to the playoffs to them. Like last year, they lost at home to Kansas City, right? Then, they lose in the regular season to them. It doesn't matter. They just can't beat them. But from a talent standpoint, and the games, to their credit, have been close, I do think the Ravens have that recipe. Turning to college football, again, going to give you a handful of games, or a quartet of games, as we will, and wanted to get your thoughts on at least a couple of these. So SEC battle, LSU and A&M in College Station, both one-loss teams overall and undefeated in conference play. Can't believe at this point in the season I would bring up this game, but here we are. Notre Dame plays Navy, who's undefeated. And then Oregon hosts Illinois, the newly anointed #1 Ducks. Get the Illini, who have 3 wins over ranked teams. And, of course, another SEC battle, because I know my buddy loves the SEC. Missouri at Bama. So I know nothing pleases you more, Zay, than talking about Bama yet again. So which of those games would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I'm going to start out with Bama versus Mizzou. I'm I'm not sure if Bama is in the same mental state as they used to be under Coach Saban. And this is one of those games where you can mess around and end up taking an L and be completely out of sorts. If Vanderbilt can beat you, and South Carolina beat themselves in lieu of beating you, there's no reason that Mizzou couldn't give you the same level of competition, if not better. And I don't know that they have the highest level of confidence in themselves at the moment. So I'm interested very much in that game. But it's the opposite of what it would usually be. It's does the train wreck continue viewership versus the running over everyone with your freight train viewership, if you will. The next game up for me, as far as wanting to watch and having a rooting interest in as well, is going to be Notre Dame versus Navy. As you know, I was in the Navy. I'm in the Air Force as well. But anytime the military academy schools are doing well in sports, it just hits a little bit different because that's not typically what they're known for. This game intrigues me because Notre Dame isn't all that great, but it's a good name to have on your resume when you're already undefeated. So if Navy can beat Notre Dame, they may creep up to being close to a playoff spot. I don't think that they'd be top 12 yet, but it would definitely get them a whole lot closer to have Notre Dame on their resume. So those are the two games that I would say kind of intrigue me the most out of the games that you put out there.
And real quick, just straight up, who do you got winning all four of those games?
Give me A&M, Navy, Oregon, Bama.
Yeah. So the game that intrigues me the most is obviously LSU and A&M. Although all of them but Oregon and Illinois interest me, if I can be honest, for different reasons. Big game in College Station. I know the 12th man in A&M, Aggie Land will be rocking for this SEC showdown. I like A&M to win this game, even though I don't like their quarterback very much. I think they'll be being at home in that crowd in a night game. They're going to be rocking. And I just feel like A&M's defense is going to make enough plays or two to get them over the finish line. Bama, Missouri. I think this would have been a better matchup for me. But look, both teams have been sliding. They both, Bama was in the top 5. Missouri was in the top 7. Both are barely in the top 25. Bama hasn't played a good game in 3.5 weeks. So, since the first half of Georgia, they basically been a no-show. But for the problem for Missouri is they've struggled too. And not only is their starting running back Noel out for the game, but their quarterback came back from getting injured to rescue them against an awful Auburn team who hasn't won a conference game. And they might be without their quarterback and their running back. So that's a tough ask to do that on the road when you already are struggling to score. So I like Bama, I like Oregon, I like A&M, and I like Notre Dame. Although Navy tends to play them tough, although Notre Dame's 11-1 record in their last 12 would say otherwise. But Notre Dame's playing for their playoff lives. After already having that dismal loss to Northern Illinois that no one has forgotten, I haven't forgot after their 5-game winning streak, right? They've looked a lot better in the last month or so. But this is a good test because both Navy and Army that Notre Dame will see both teams this year, it's really hard to prepare for a service academy and the offense they run. They really put pressure on you to be disciplined and get off the field on third down they have these long drives, you know, where it's 6, 7, 8 minutes. And before you look at it, you've had the ball twice and a half. And so Notre Dame better be really efficient when they have the ball and score, because they may not see it a whole lot. So I think that game's going to be really tight, but I like Notre Dame closer than the experts think, but give me Notre Dame.
MLB, the World Series is upon us. We have our squad, the Yankees, going up against that other squad out west, the Dodgers. What's your overview? What's your prediction? How are we feeling about this matchup?
Well, first of all, I'm sure like you, I am so excited for this World Series that starts. You know, it's been 15 years for the Yankees since they last went in 2009. They had some close calls. The Astros kept getting in our way. Really proud of the grit and guts. It wasn't easy, but really proud of how the Yanks were able to finish off the Guardians. But this is the most interesting World Series matchup in over 2 decades. It's like blue blood U. The Yankees and the Dodgers, the 2 biggest, brightest baseball brands in the biggest markets, are playing. So from a media standpoint and a fan standpoint, it's exciting. But I have a little breakdown. From a starting pitching aspect, I give it to the advantage to the Yankees. The Yankees have 5 healthy starters. The Dodgers just have 3, right? Flaherty in game 1, Yamamoto in game 2, who was hurt earlier in the year, but has come back, and then Buehler in game 3. Bullpen, I give the advantage to the Dodgers. They have a deeper bullpen. The Yankees are really good with Canely, Holmes, and Weaver, but the Dodgers are much deeper. Offensively, can you ask for better star power? Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Hernandez, Judge, Soto, Stanton. Like, this is like an all-star, superstar class of offense. Can't wait to see it. Might turn into a slow-pitch softball game. And then the defense, I give a slight edge to New York. Their metrics were a little bit better during the regular season. The Dodgers do at times tend to play some questionable defense, whereas the Yankees have base running issues. They run themselves out of innings all the time, so that's a concern there. Manager, look, I'm not a fan of either of these guys. Aaron Boone tried to single-handedly screw up that Guardian series by leaving in questionable relievers way too long and making matchup decisions that made no sense. But look, as bad as Boone is in the postseason, who I don't think has a sense of urgency, Dave Roberts says, you know what? Hold my beer. I have the best team every year. We still never win the World Series. We've done it once in a COVID year that to me doesn't even count. You know, when you play 60 games and no fans and all that other stuff, that doesn't even count as a season for me. But I actually like the Yankees in 7 games, because I think that the fact there's 2 things that give me hope and confidence that the Yankees win. 1, Garrett Cole is likely going to pitch 3 games. So the best starting pitcher in the series by a mile is going to get 3 opportunities, games 1, 4, and 7 if we get there. You got to like that. The other thing is, and this is as much as the Dodgers bullpen is better than New York's, remember we saw this in the last round where the Guardians had the much better bullpen than New York. How'd that go? The Yankees lit up Clase twice. They lit up Cade Smith. They also got to their 3rd best reliever as well, and his name is escaping me. The setup man, Gaddis. They got to Gaddis too. Juan Soto's 3-run bomb in the 10th. It was the 2nd time they got to Gaddis as well. So they got to their 3 best relievers multiple times in the series. The more you see their relievers, the more accustomed you get to them. And Soto, Judge, and Stanton are 2 good of hitters They're going to figure him out in key spots. And make no mistake, the Dodgers are going to have to go to that pen early and often. Advantage New York. What do you think?
I believe that for the Yankees to win, their stars are going to have to shine bright. You aren't going to be able to have a lackluster Judge. You aren't going to be able to have a lackluster Stanton and come out unscathed. I do agree with you that the starting pitching for the Yankees is better. However, I have to say that the Dodgers have been, although they aren't better, they have been consistent. And I just really feel like if we don't win the games where Cole is starting, it's going to be an issue. Like game one, if you give the Dodgers game one with Cole on the mound and give them that added sense of accomplishment and confidence, I guess, if you will, the momentum from whoever wins game one, I think, can kind of be ridden a little bit into the. Now, one thing I do like about the fact that the Dodgers have game one at home, but then the next 3 games the Yankees have. So I don't exactly know why that makes sense as far as the setup with the scheduling. But I absolutely love that because when we don't have our best pitcher on the mound, our pitchers will at least be at home. So I definitely love that aspect of it. But I think it's going to be a series for the ages. And I do like the fact that you said Yankees in 7 because I don't believe that either team is going to be able to close out at the earliest. I'll say Yankees in 6, but I do like your prognostication there of Yankees in 7. So that's just kind of where my mind is on it. Now, look, we got to ask you this, BK, because we know BK wins. What props or what leans do you have right now as far as the World Series is concerned?
So there's a few World Series MVP odds here. And so Ohtani is the favorite at plus 220. Judge plus 500, Soto plus 550, Betts plus 800, Stanton plus 900. And if you're looking for kind of dark horses, which you know I like to dabble in that, Garrett Cole plus 2,800 and Teoscar Hernandez, who killed the Yankees in the regular season with home run bombs left and right, he's plus 2,800. So while you know me well enough to know that I look at the value, and Ohtani hasn't hit the Yankees great. So in my mind, I am looking down the line to see where the value is. And with New York being my pick to win in 7, again, not a best bet, but one that I definitely did place this bet with my own money here. I have Soto plus 550 to win Series MVP. Why? Because have you watched the playoffs? Who in the playoffs takes better bats than Juan Soto? When does he take a bat at bat? He's always, every bat he is locked in.
And if you notice, I didn't call his name when I said these Yankee stars have to play because I expect him to play. Judge and Stanton are helter-skelter. Sometimes they come to the game and sometimes they don't. I haven't seen inconsistencies in Soto. So let me ask you this. Does it scare you at all looking at it from your Vegas cap that they have Ohtani as such a prohibitive favorite and you rarely ever see an MVP go to a losing team? Does that kind of worry you just a little bit as being a Yankees fan?
From a fan standpoint, I mean, look, I will flat out tell you that even though this is a coin flip series and either team can win it, it'll go at least 6 games either way. I think the Dodgers are a little bit better. But I just don't trust Dave Roberts
in a tight spot.
In a tight spot with the pressure of the World Series to not fold like a cheap 10. And you know, Ohtani I think is the best player. So it makes sense that the Dodgers are the slight favorite from a Vegas standpoint. And I think from a talent standpoint, they're the slight favorite. I don't disagree with that. And I also think Ohtani's the best player. So it makes sense that he is the favorite. But remember when we pick tennis odds and we pick hockey odds and we pick horse racing odds? When is the favorite won?
This is true.
So
the favorite hasn't won once this year.
So I say that to say that, look, if the Dodgers win, and for all of you Dodgers fans out there or anti-Yankee fans, let me just say this. If you're looking for a non-Yankee to bet, the person that I would pick, no pun intended, is Mookie Betts at plus 800. Mookie Betts is a hitting machine. He's not their best player. Ohtani's the best player. But make no mistake, Betts is a proven star, and he could be the one. He's the one, because I did hedge my bet. There were two MVPs that I took. I did take Soto plus 550, and I hopped on Betts plus 800. I think that if you're looking at that, that's the way to go.
All righty. Well, we shall see what goes on in the World Series. We'll definitely be talking about that and everything else sports. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's go ahead and move into our next segment. Our truth and nothing but the truth. First up, what we got, BK?
Did you see my smile, Zay? You know what's coming. And you know I literally feel like a kid at Christmas time. I've been waiting for this all week. I feel like Carrie Underwood, when we've been waiting all week for Sunday night, here it is. What's the excuse now? The Jets got Devontae Adams, right? He was a savior. I kept hearing about how great he is, and he's a savior, and this is going to be great. Not only did the Jets blow a 15-6 lead, but they lost badly again. They got absolutely dominated. Aaron Rodgers, again at charity, threw another 2 picks. Again, Mr. I won 2 playoff games since 17. Before I get into my whole spiel of this, what's the excuse? Should he just retire?
At this point, there isn't an excuse to my humble opinion. But I do think there are a couple reasons. Let's just look at it for what it's really worth. How much winning did Rodgers and Adams do together in their younger days? Sure, they put up a lot of stats. Sure, they made a fun brand of football to watch. But when it came time to actually win, when it mattered, when the pressure was on, they really didn't do a whole lot of that. Now, you're no longer in the NFC. You're in the AFC. The AFC, for several years now, humble opinion, has been the tougher conference to be a part of. And the thing that people are taking for granted is the fact that Rodgers doesn't like to participate in the offseason. But he does like to complain when he isn't on the same page as everyone else on the team come week 1, week 2, week 3. You won't practice. You're over in Africa doing drugs. But then you come back and expect to be on the same page with teammates that you have not had the opportunity to play with. So you can complain to the high heavens and say, hey, I just need a guy who knows me and I know him and everything will be all right. So you get Adams. Adams gets a whopping 3 catches for 30 yards. Seriously? Seriously. Like, this is Brett Favre all over again. The band is playing as the Titanic is sinking. And people are thinking, go ahead, BK.
I was going to say, here's the thing, Zay, right? Like, he's 40, almost 41. He came off of a serious season-ending injury last year. He doesn't play all of preseason, or very little, right? He's on a 2-5 team. They fired their coach. They demoted their offensive coordinator. They bring in Devontae Adams, and they're 2-5. Like, I said this on one of our other shows. The Jets have no shot of making the playoffs. None.
The Jets have the exact same record as the team that Devontae Adams just kicked and screamed to get off of. So there's that part.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, and this is what I said before, I understand he's familiar with Rodgers. But when your history in the last 7 years is you don't win much of anything that of value, which is the playoffs, right? Then why would you go there when you literally had any other option? You could have been in Kansas City playing with Mahomes. So if my option is Mahomes, where I'm on an undefeated team that's going to go in the deep in the playoffs, and you know this, or I'm going to go to the Jets team that shits the bed every year, why would I go to the Jets?
Here's the other thing.
I don't get it.
He really going to be mad when Rodgers takes his ball and goes home after this year.
Right.
Because now you're stuck.
No, he'll just get traded again.
Well, true. I just there's no there. The best thing about Adams going to the Jets is Aaron Rodgers now has 0 excuses, and I will accept 0 excuses from any of his cohorts or fans because you got exactly what you wanted, and you're at this point, just so we're on the same page, Aaron Rodgers has produced, ironically, almost exactly the amount of offensive production that Zach Wilson did. So do with that what you will. Next up, for the first time since 2007, the SEC teams are unbeaten. Every SEC team is unbeaten heading into November. What's the blame? NIL, transfer portal, deeper league. I mean, like, what are we doing with this? Like, how do we unpackage this?
So I think for me, I think a portion of all of that is factoring in. You know, the league's deeper, adding Texas and Oklahoma. And look, Oklahoma's had their struggles, make no mistake. But those are two deep and 2 other, we'll say, at least competent football teams. I won't say Oklahoma's good, great, or awesome, but Texas is pretty good despite last week's showing, right? But you just got some angry dogs last week. So, but Texas is really good. They're going to make the playoffs. You're going to hear from them later. But I think the league is really deep. NIL has changed the landscape of college sports, and so is the portal. And because of all that, you're playing better teams that have more parity in the league. I mean, look, Vandy's playing competent football. I'll pause while you process that sentence because I haven't said that since James Franklin was there. So Vandy is playing competent football. And so I got to tell you, the league doesn't have the dominant teams they're used to having. Texas has their warts. Alabama clearly has flaws. We know that Georgia has some warts. So, like, there's just not that superstar dominant team that we're used to. The bone crushing Bama team or explosive offensive Bama team with Mac Jones and Waddle and all of them, or the LSU with Burrow where they're still scoring points there in Baton Rouge, or the loaded Georgia team that went back to back and were a game away from a three-peat. We don't have those dominant teams. It's literally wide open. And I think that that's creating the problem too, is on any given day when you don't have that dominant team, anyone can be gotten.
We had the exact same thought process, BK. There's no singularly dominant team with no holes. Before NIL, teams like Georgia and Alabama had backups to their backups that would be starting on other teams. Now, these students are saying, well, if I can start early and get paid to do so, why would I be a backup over here and not get a paycheck? Doesn't make sense. Everybody can't work for Amazon. Everybody can't work for Google, but there are other companies out there that are paying just the same. Maybe you don't like the name as much, but you like the check and you like the fact that you're going to be the one in charge versus being someone else's assistant. That's what we're seeing right now. That's one of the biggest things that we're seeing right now. And in all honesty, I think that Nick Saban, in his infinite wisdom, he saw this coming a mile away. And because he saw it coming, he got out while the getting was good. He got out before his name could be tarnished or before his cachet could be brought down to his counterparts. And at this point, based on how spread out the talent I can see being in college football going forward based on this setup, there'll never be another Nick Saban. It would have been hard-pressed for there to be another one before all these changes. But now, good luck with that. I just don't see it happening.
Sure. Well, I have been very excited, Zay, because you are all things WNBA, and I am hot about a couple things. But before I give my tirade about this, I'm going to ask, was the WNBA Finals rigged like the Lynx head coach Reeves said?
Well, BK, let me just say this. We normally save the can't miss weekly rants for the end of the show. I'm going to save a few comments for the end of the show, but you're going to get my rant now. It was a setup. They were hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray. It was rigged. It was dirty. Humble opinion, call me a conspiracy theorist, but the Jets don't stand a chance at a championship. The Giants don't stand a chance at a championship. The Knicks don't stand a chance at a championship. The Nets don't stand a chance at a championship. There's one New York championship that was out there to be had, and it was this one. And they made sure that they got it because no amount of cheating would have made the other ones make sense. They're 25 free throws to 8. I saw some fouls called on one end, and you had issues on the other end that were double the amount of contact. And all of a sudden, the refs were Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. And and even with that being the case, the Lynx still almost won. They should have won in regulation. It was so upsetting to me on two fronts. One, I believe that the Lynx should have won the championship. But two, yes, the Liberty won, but to win in this way and for it to be remembered how I think it's going to be remembered, I don't even know if I would want to be a part of that. I know you're a champion. You get a ring. You get a parade. You get to be the only New York team for the next decade that can say they're a champion. But this just stunk to high heaven for me. It just did. I didn't see how half of the calls that the referees made any sense, and how half of the non-calls that the other team didn't make sense. It was just, in short, this was rigged. Like this was a give me to the Liberty.
So I'm going to correct one thing, Zay, which is it's not the only New York team that has a chance to win a title, as the Yankees are still there.
Oh, I apologize. You're right. I got out ahead of myself. I was over my skis a little bit there. My fault.
So let's just not, unless you know something that I don't know, in which case I'll run to the betting window if you do. Hook a friend up. But
the only New York team that hasn't won championships
fair enough.
that was in the how would I say, that had any chance of winning one in the near future.
For sure. Absolutely. So first, I'm going to be all over this for a lot of reasons. One, it absolutely was rigged. Look, I understand that you played a 5-game series and typically the better team will win in a long series, right? Well, it's not like it was a best of 3 or a 1-game play-in. It was literally 5 games. But if you watch the series, the Lynx outplayed them. It took a buzzer beater by Sabrina to save them in 1 game. And then the refs saved them in game 5. And 25 free throws to 8. And I heard all about, well, BK, did you see the box score? The fouls were only 21-17. That's great. It's like I always say, and I don't mean to offend anyone out here when I say this, but here it is. Stats are like bikinis. They show a lot, but not everything. And in this case, while there was only 4 foul difference, 25-8 begs to differ that there was not a difference. And it happened to conveniently be after the Liberty head coach reamed the refs after game 4, whining about the calls in Minnesota, and then got him in game 5. But secondly, this game set back women's basketball 10 years. A 67-62 overtime game where I watched Sabrina Ionescu shoot 1 for 19 for the field, 1 for 10 for 3, and as a team they shoot 5 for 42. I feel like you and I could go out there blindfolded and shoot 5 for 42. Like, that is awful. It's trash. That effort, and I won't say the effort was good. The performance and how unwatchable it was in line with how trashy the officiating was. It was terrible. That was the worst game 5 winner take all I can ever imagine. It was garbage. The league should be embarrassed. Everyone should be embarrassed. Everyone who attended that game should get their money back, and the refs shouldn't get paid, and they should get suspended for next year.
Oh, no, they've already gotten paid. It wouldn't matter if they had to give their check back.
I mean, listen, I just waited for them to pull
somewhere else.
Like, did the same refs who did the Miami Vautech game do the basketball game? Like, what the hell happened? That just, you can't do that. You cost Minnesota a title because you just, and I'll take one more thing. The easiest sport to rig is basketball because it's so easy to call ticky-tack fouls or change how you're going to call these fouls. On one end, you touch me, it's a flagrant. On the other end, nothing to see here. Oh my God, you're not in the hospital, no foul. Like, you can't do that. Anyone who has ever played sports, and you and I have played sports for a long time, all anyone asks is, whatever you call on one end, call the same on the other end. Whatever it is, if you call a charge every time on one end, even if it's not the right call, as long as you do it on the other end, there's nothing anybody can say. But you can't pick and choose. That you got to be better.
And that's exactly what happened in this game. On one end, it was a foul, and on the other end, it was a nothing to see here. That's what ticked me off the most. BK, it's our time to show a little personality, if you will. Our top 5 all-time favorite of something this week is game shows. a couple of the game shows on your list, actually. Yeah, just a couple. Ended up on mine, and this was kind of interesting to see. Go ahead and start us out with your number 5.
So I want everyone to know here I'm in a much better mood post my rant. So we're back to games and game shows. So here it is. Number 5, Wheel of Fortune. Love watching Wheel of Fortune. This will shock you, but I'm very much a puzzle cerebral person. So to be able to try to solve these puzzles, and especially the bonus round, and a chance to win lots of money and prizes. I love Wheel of Fortune. So it's a tradition like any other. So number 5, I have Wheel of Fortune. What about you?
Number 5 for me, Supermarket Sweep.
Oh,
the having to go across all the aisles, figure out what costs the most or what item you had to. They gave you a clue about that you had to find, and like that. It was just a different kind of a game show, and I know that probably won't make a whole lot of people's list, but for me, that was one of the funnest game shows, other than my number 4, that has ever been on TV. Like, I know for a fact the 2 aisles that you want to go to first, if you want to make sure that your cart has a higher total overall value than anyone else's, the coffee, the meat. If you hit up those 2 aisles, your total value is going to be higher than everyone else's. Supermarket Sweep, my number 5. What's your number 4, BK?
So number 4, The Family Feud. Anytime Steve Harvey is hilarious in Family Feud. And I love, again, the ending. I love some of the all-time great answers that people will give to some of these questions and the looks their families give them in some cases to these answers. But I just laugh my ass off to Family Feud. Love it. So Family Feud, number 4.
People do a lot of telling on themselves in Family Feud. I can tell you that much.
Yes.
Number 4 for me, this is going back a little bit, BK. I don't know if this was on your radar, but there was a little show on Nickelodeon called Double Dare. Double Dare, it was a family game show. When you got something wrong, you got slimed. You had all these obstacle courses, and you had question and answer, all kind of different stuff going on. Double Dare was definitely one of my favorite game shows all time. And it's because it was the first game show that I started watching, because obviously as a kid, I was watching Nickelodeon. It was the only game show on Nickelodeon. So yeah, that makes my top 5 all-time list. Number 3, what do you got, BK?
So my parents know these next 2. Love these next 2. Card Sharks. My mom loves. So you answer some questions, and then you go higher, lower, and you try to get through the board.
Okay.
So my mom would laugh because I'd always sit there and go higher, lower, and then you can stop, you can freeze so that you don't go back to the beginning. Because the goal is to get from, you start at the same and you want to go all the way and get 5 cards right to win. If you miss at any point and you don't freeze, then you go back to the beginning. So, and obviously, for example, if I start with an ace, you're going to say lower, right? Because unless it's another ace, it's going to be lower than an ace. So that's the goal. So if you get a 2,
so it's pretty easy, but it's a lot of, I mean, there's strategy involved there. You got to kind of know your cards a little bit.
How aggressive am I going to be? When do I freeze? If I freeze, what if I don't get the next question right? I might not get another shot. So there is a lot of strategy. I mean, the luck part is you can't control the higher, lower. You can't control the cards you get or what they turn over, but the strategy part is huge. And I love saying higher, lower. So that's my number 3. What's your number 3, bud?
My number 3 was your number 5, Wheel of Fortune. I love the puzzles. Pat Sajak, Vanna White, I I especially love the end of the show where it's just you against the puzzle, and sometimes it's so simple that you overthink it, and sometimes it's so complex that you would have never thought of it. So it's luck of the draw. But that was one of those shows that I mean, I watched the show. I bought the video game. I had the handheld game. You know, that's kind of telling my age a little bit, but you could play the Wheel of Fortune handheld game. I think it was it Namco or something like that? Was the makers? But yeah, the Wheel of Fortune. That's my number 3. What do you have at your number 2?
Number 2, Press Your Luck. For those of you,
is that the big bucks no whammies?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I got you. I love
one of my favorite game show hosts going a long time ago was Peter Tamarkin, who hosted the original Press Your Luck. Well, they brought it back and they had Elizabeth Banks host it, and she's done a terrific job. But
it's going now.
It's on now. Yeah.
Did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. So I laugh because I'm the only person, and to quote this, I'll call myself names, #a-hole. I'm the only person who watches that show and cheers for the whammies. I get so excited when they get the whammy, and I get so pissed when they don't. So, yeah. So
You're one of those guys that root for crashes in NASCAR, huh?
Right. That's
exactly because you know you're going to get one.
In this case, though, nobody gets hurt. They just get financially hurt, so that's okay. But I'm like, oh, I get so excited. And then I'll never forget this one woman had 4 spins, and she went whammy, whammy, 5,000 whammy, and I laughed. What you got for your number 2?
My number 2, Jeopardy. Oh. Love Jeopardy. And it's because you can play along you can literally play along at home. Me and my wife will literally be yelling out answers at the TV. And I know she's going to hear this. So I'll know when she listens because she's going to come probably punch me in the arm or something. But it's so funny to me. The looks that we give and get as we throw out answers that are not in the realm of possibility, but we feel absolutely confident about the answer. Like when you know the answer and they say something that is like, you're like, what? What are you talking about? What? And she won't verbalize, but that little twitch of the eye, that little eyebrow going up, that little rock eyebrow, that I know what you're thinking. I'm not an idiot, even though the answer that I gave was a bit idiotic in that particular instance. But most of them I got right. Give me a break. But yeah, Jeopardy is one of those game shows that everyone has a category that they just go into. Like, oh, I can't. When they have a sports category, I sit back and smile because I know I got a chance in this one. My number 2. Jeopardy. Both of us have the exact same number 1. And go ahead and tell the people what it is.
Well, come on down, Zay. You're the next contestant on.
The Price is Right.
Love that. Love
it. My grandmother, I spent many summers at her house, okay? Every day, we'd watch The Price is Right together. After The Price is Right, I'd get lunch, and then I'd be put outside until the stories went off. The stories included Guiding Light, Bold and Beautiful, General Hospital, and Oprah was another show that I was not allowed to interrupt. So there was about 4 hours of time that I was outside doing whatever the heck I could figure out to do. But I was fed, I was happy, and everybody else was outside because there weren't video games. Well, there was the Atari, but no one was really dead set on staying inside to play that. But yeah, The Price is Right for sentimental reasons is my number 1 because that was like I want to say that was probably the only game show that my grandmother watched on a regular basis, but we always watched it together. It came on at like, I want to say like 11 o'clock, and then her stories came on at 12 o'clock. So I knew that the last time I was going to have dialogue with my grandmother for several hours was going to be doing Price is Right. And after that, it's if you stand in the house, shut up, or if you go outside, don't be coming in and out, letting out my good air. So that's kind of where that came from. Now, the money-making part of the show, BK. Best bets. What we got this week, bro?
So first of all, how have we been doing, buddy, with these bets you've been placing?
Hey, man, I've been doing pretty well. Between your best bets and my something has to be wrong here, I'm going to take this while I can, like the one I sent you today. I've been killing the teasers. So, yeah.
Well, if you guys notice, last week was another terrific week. Indiana -6. Yeah, they scored 42 in the first half against Nebraska. I think they still are scoring on Nebraska. And the NFL, for the third time in the last 4 weeks, another perfect week. We hit all of our teasers. I try in the NFL to give you straight bets and not do the teasers, but the games have just been lining up that way, and we're going to run that way this week as well. So for the teaser bets I have in college, I like Indiana -1 at home. They just got to beat. They just have to beat Washington. By the way, the time zone thing going all the way from West Coast to Eastern time, a noon kickoff against an undefeated team. By the way, that's going to be a 9 o'clock start time for the Huskies, their time, what they're used to. That's going to be rough. And, you know, I know Indiana's playing their backup quarterback, but he looked pretty good last week. But at home to just win, give me the Hoosiers. Also, BYU, a line they opened -1.5 as a favorite. It changed to 2.5 in favor of UCF. Apparently changing your quarterback and almost beating Iowa State now turns you from a team who's been terrible for a while into now a good team. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. Give me BYU +8 as well in a teaser. I get the better team and over a touchdown. I'll take that. NFL, the teasers. The Lions, money line at home. The Ravens, -2.5 against the Browns. Do you really think the Ravens aren't going to beat the Browns? And then the Chiefs, -4 with the teaser at Las Vegas. That's -10. I moved that to -4. I like the Steelers teasing that. Give me the money line. The Broncos. Look, there's nothing better than betting against the Panthers. Now they don't have Dalton. The Bryce Young project is back. He gets to go to a top 5 Broncos team on the road. Make that 4 Bronco wins in a row. The Broncos will be 5-3. I love them to win that. I like Washington +8 at home over the Bears. Move that +2 to +8. And the last one I want to give you, not because I think that they're going to win the game, because I do think the Bengals beat the Eagles, but it crosses 4 key numbers. Give me the Eagles +8.5 at Cincinnati. It crosses 3, 4, 6, 7, which are, for those of you who aren't familiar with the betting and key numbers are end of score differential, basically common outcomes of what the game. So teams usually win by 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, 13, 14, that kind of thing. So give me the Eagles +8.5 are the best bets for this week. Take them, which you should do. We've been red hot all seasons. They will tell you. I've been sitting on a horseshoe throughout 2024. Don't miss out your chance to win again. But fade them if you will. But
those are the best bets. Good luck to everybody, and let our wallets get fat here in another weekend.
Love it, love it, love it. BK, I'll throw out my rant first for this week's Can't Miss Weekly Rants because it's not as much of a rant as it is a celebration of sorts. I kind of gave my rant in the WNBA section there. But I'll just say, if you can't see the significance of the first time that a father and son have played on the same basketball court at the same time on the same team in the history of the NBA, if for whatever reason you poo-poo that accomplishment, it says more about you than the accomplishment. You can think of whatever you want about Bronny. You can think of whatever you want about the GOAT conversation, about what LeBron James is or is not. But at the end of the day, for something to be done that has never been done, and then for you to indicate that, oh, it's not that difficult to do. Normally, things that have never been done, they've never been done because it's kind of difficult to do. I'm just putting that out there. The longevity that it takes for the father to have to continue to play into his... Most people don't work sitting at a desk for 20 years. This man has played basketball for now going into his 21st season. Okay? And then actually being able to get your son to a point where he can be drafted onto a team. Regardless of, look, if my dad was the CEO of Amazon and couldn't get me a job, he wouldn't deserve to be the CEO of Amazon. So for you to complain about the fact that a father got his son a position in a business that he might not otherwise have been able to get on his own, I don't think you've been paying much attention to America as of late. Just putting that out there. And that's my rant. Oh, yeah. And the Lakers are undefeated. I don't care if it's only been one game, we're undefeated. Keep your hating to yourself. Right along.
On a plus side, AD hasn't gotten hurt yet.
Lordy.
So since you had a lot of fun in yours, I might not be welcome back in Cleveland after what I have to say. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, and look, I understand that Deshaun Watson is a horrible human being. He's a terrible human being. Anybody who abuses and assaults women will never, ever, 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 ever be okay in my book. There is no place for that. So yes, he's a crappy person. And I understand why people, specifically women, but anybody wouldn't support Deshaun Watson. And make no mistake, he's played absolutely terrible since coming to Cleveland. And I understand why you would rather see another quarterback. Any other quarterback. But what I'm also going to say is, it is never okay, and you should be absolutely embarrassed, ashamed, and really look yourself in the mirror that you would ever cheer for somebody to get injured, let alone a season-ending serious injury. That's Bush League. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. You're better than that. I know you're better than that. You know you're better than that. But that's terrible. Don't get pissed at Deshaun Watson. Did I miss the part that Watson paid himself all that money? The ownership was the one who screwed up and brought him in and paid him all that money and overpaid him by $50 million at the time, more than anybody else. Watson didn't pay himself. The Browns ownership did. You want to hate somebody? Hate the owners, because they continually find new ways to screw things up. Blame them.
But don't blame the player. Yeah, the player sucks. Yeah, he should be benched. Yeah, he doesn't. Well, I get all that. Never, ever boo or cheer for somebody to get injured. That's terrible. How would you feel if someone cheered for you to get injured? And I understand that the city of Philly boo Santa Claus. That's a whole level of fandom. All right? Stop booing players. And you are cheering players' injuries. And you know what? Here's the deal. If you don't want Watson to be on the roster and you don't want to support the Browns, stop going to the damn games. Stop going to the games. You can't continue to watch the games and go to all the games and sell out every game and watch a 1-16 and tell me that they both can't be true. You got to do better. Stop cheering injuries. And that's the truth.
That wraps up the show for this week. Make sure that you check us out on Tuesday. We will be, well, actually on Wednesday. We'll be recording on Tuesday, but you'll have access to it on Wednesday. You'll be able to check out our weekend midweek recap, and we have quite a bit of fun. All three of the Gospel Sports Truth personalities on one show. And it's pretty much guaranteed that somebody's going to disagree with somebody. It's normally me disagreeing with BK and Vander. Every now and then, BK disagrees with Vander, but I'm normally the antagonist of the show, if you will. But we have a lot of fun, and we always speak our truth and nothing but the truth, and we will continue to do so. Thank you so much for supporting us. Again, make sure you check us out at the Gospel STP on YouTube. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, the Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group, and we'll see you guys next week.
God bless and go Yankees.
Have a good one.
Later, y'all.